Guys, we have the time now. Please, everybody, put your questions down at the bottom and we'll ask them. So, pre-cat lacquer, I have a buddy, you might know him, Nick from NWR, and he likes to talk. We talk about coatings all the time, and he thinks that pre-cat lacquers look the best or have the potential to look the best. We often upsell clients from 2K poly up to oil enamel. That's the most expensive finish we have is in oil enamel. And we'll tell them that, you know, a 2K poly might have a slight plastic look and feel to it. It is a polyurethane. What are your thoughts on pre-cat lacquer looking richer and nicer as a finish?
I'm not sure what he's talking about there. I know Nick does a lot of great work, and I'm not sure which product line he's using that maybe I'm not familiar with, because that's not been my experience. I will, however, say that recently we've started using a pre-cat that does look and feel a lot like CV. And we've been pretty happy with it. It's got a lot of solids. The primer has got so much solids in it that you actually have to thin it 1-to-1. It's so heavy. I've never seen a pre-cat primer like that. But honestly, I've always been able to tell pre-cat as soon as I look at it. Most of the time, I don't even have to take thinner to it to know it's pre-cat. And honestly, it really comes down to the build. So pre-cats by their nature just don't have as much solids as the CVs. And so unless these guys are putting multiple coats on, I'm not sure how you can compare. So I know Nick, I'll have to ask him about what he's talking about there.
Yeah, I'd love to have you guys talk about that, because I think he talks about maybe more in the clears than anything, a richer look to it than a plasticky look from a 2K poly. I oftentimes I try to upsell when I talk to clients, I'm like, 2K poly, most durable, blah, blah, blah. But if you really, really are particular, an oil enamel will have a greater depth of color, and will be a richer finish at the end. When you touch and feel an oil enamel, there's nothing like it, you know. And we'll kind of talk up oil enamel as like the gold standard for coatings as far as richness and high end, you know. But I can be.
The amount of labor you have to put in, I'm absolutely blown away. Like, the amount of labor that you guys have to put in finishing one door with that is just, like, I know you're getting enough money to justify it. I'm still just floored that there's enough people that want to pay that to have a door like that. And hey, good on you, man. You're in that market and you're taking advantage of it. I just don't see that here. You know what? I was talking to my wife about this. I don't know if it's old money versus new money and a different kind of mentality that comes with it. There's not a lot of old money here in Calgary and in Alberta. It's a lot of new money, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of self-made people. The thought of spending $6,000 to paint a door would make them blow their brains out, no matter how rich they are, right? They're just way more pragmatic than that. So you must be in a market where maybe there's a lot of older money. I'm just here. Am I right?
Yeah, there's Boston, New England in general, right, is much older money. That's where the people first kind of got here and started spreading.
Yeah.
We have definitely have more old money. We have more people that, I mean, I think craftsmanship, it's a fairly safe argument to make that there's a higher percentage of quality craftsmen per capita in New England than anywhere else, because that's where all the craftsmen, everybody came to in New England first, and then the craftsmanship and the people sort of spread from New England. So if you go down to like Florida in the South, like, it's super hard to find really good craftsmen. I'm not saying there's not any. They're everywhere. Great craftsmen everywhere. But per capita, I think that the standards in New England are really, really high. You can find lots of very knowledgeable, you know, a lot of stuff passed down. And so it's not like it's when it becomes common, when people just know, you know, you walk down the street in Beacon Hill in Boston and there's Fine Paints of Europe doors, you know, every other door.
Yeah.
when that's the standard, they're just like, well, I want that. And
Yeah.
then say, well, that costs $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. Okay. Like it's just sort of out there in the zeitgeist that this is a thing.
Yeah.
And I know Rhode Island, in contrast, is different. We have a much tougher time selling gloss doors. It's so easy for me to sell a gloss door in Boston, and Rhode Island, it's a much tougher sell. Not impossible, but it's definitely like people are. I understand that market a little more where you're at. I think people are a little more just like, what, I don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, but by the same token, though, we sell more wood doors here, like grandiose wood exterior door units here, probably than anywhere else in North America, and it's probably the worst friggin' place to have them. They all fail. They all fail, and it's just a matter of time. You can do the most amazing coating job on them, and they all fail. But they got to have them. So, I mean, yeah, there's that too, right? So, but I was just curious about that because I've never done a door like that the way you've done it, and I don't know. I've done some high gloss doors, but never quite that way with the oil and the layers and the sanding and the layers. It's almost like doing a grand piano.
Yeah, I mean that's what we sell. We call it piano finish. We started calling it now our signature finish. I ordered these coins. We're getting custom ZK coins that they're antique brass and antique like nickel silver, and we're going to be drilling out a hole in the side of our doors on the jamb or the strikes, the hinge side.
Yeah.
And we're going to be like epoxying in these, and it's going to have the year that we painted them. So I just ordered a bunch of 2020s.
Oh, nice.
So we're trying to make ZK door because I'm selling doors for generally $3,500 to $6,000 to paint a front door. Like a lot has to come with that.
Yeah.
We're selling a piano finish, our signature piano grade finish. But on top of that, like we have to have the show, right? I can't show up like dressed all raggedy and like, it all has to be like, as my good consultant once told me, if you're going to sell Lamborghinis, you have to sell them from a Lamborghini dealership.
Yeah.
I think a big part of it is that. So I think, and I did want to touch on that if we can. Who is your client? When your client is not the end user, it's a lot harder to sell expensive stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If I go to a GC, we don't do much work for GCs because I'll put together a beautiful bid for a GC. We're going to give them an amazing project. But I hand them a piece of paper, and the GC now has to go sell my job to the client. Versus if I get to meet that client and I get to talk about the coatings and I get to like show my passion for what I'm doing, and then I hand them a piece of paper, it's a much easier sell. So I empathize with your situation because you're dealing with a middleman of sorts between the end user. And so that end user might even want your Lamborghini. But if the cabinet guy who buys your service doesn't know how to sell that Lamborghini to the client, you'll never sell it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and you know what? We got all different levels, right? So, we've got guys here that, will be pounding together a sixplex and need all the cabinetry done for that. So we'll do that for him. And then we've got, a $5 or $6 million home full of high-end furnishings and cabinetry, and we'll do that. Whereas, so you got to be really nimble and have different approaches. And one of the things that I've found to be very, very important is, and almost no finishing shop has it, I can tell you no finishing shop in the city has it, is a professional, inviting environment to walk into. So my clients can send their clients here. I'm meeting more and more of the end users because they're coming down to color consult in our showroom. They can come down and look at samples in a nice, clean, unscary, unsmelly, place, right? I mean, most of the other finishing shops, you walk into their bay, you're walking right into their work area, and you're not sure, where you should go. And it's just, so I found it important to build a showroom and build basically a selection area that, I mean, I've got a really nice one now that was kind of handed to me by, unfortunately, one of my clients that decided to pull the plug, but we still were doing the same thing before. It just wasn't nearly as nice as it is now. I was a little bit fortunate for that. So I think that is really, really key. That it's kind of lends to what you were saying, like it's selling professionalism. It's selling, stability. I've been here for 23 years. I'm probably gonna be here for another 23. So if you have any problems, you know where I am, right? And you know what? For your next 3 or 4 renovations down the road, and we've had that. We've had clients come to us with different contractors and different renovators over the years, but the same client who insisted that they had to bring everything to us. And I think that's part of, I can see you're doing the same kind of thing. And I think that is really important. That a lot of finishing shops have completely missed the mark on that.
Yeah. I think I've talked about it before, but I think it's the sommelier effect, we'll call it. That's not probably the technical term for it, but that idea that when the sommelier tells you the story behind the wine magically has more value in your mind and it tastes better. Those are facts. Otherwise, sommeliers wouldn't have a job. So I think it's the same thing with our coatings, right? When the client has been explained, that the coating system has been explained to the client in a clear way, when they've seen where the work is going to be done, or they've seen the work being done with great reverence and great craft in a clean, professional environment, and then the schedule gets met, you don't end up a month late, and
yeah.
Now that project comes in the door, the client's happy the whole time. What they see, it's subjective, right? Just like tasting the wine is subjective. What they see is so much more beautiful when the whole process has been beautiful. I've learned the hard way in business that having a great final product and a bad process, the client doesn't see that. We used to get way more blue tape put on all of our projects when I was an unprofessional outfit charging not enough money. Now I charge a lot of money and we try to be very professional and we never see blue tape anymore. And I would argue paint job is not different. So I think that's a brilliant idea, having a showroom and being able to develop a direct relationship with the end user.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how many shop tours I've given where customers are, let's just say, and I don't know what it's like in Boston, but I can speak to here and some other places I've lived, that the wood finishing industry is pretty unsophisticated. That's going to be my most politically correct term I'm going to use. There are some great guys here in business, and they've got some really, they do some great work. But there's a lot of unstable, right? A lot of just fly by night, unstable, the garage guys, and people get nervous about, well, where's my stuff getting finished? Like who's going to have all my stuff, right? And so being able to sort of open that up, and and that's the reason I got into Instagram too, is I always looked at it as a peek behind the curtain, because changing finishers for anybody, like, it's the devil is probably better than jumping out and ending up in a worse problem. So that was really my whole intention of Instagram, and it blew into something much bigger than I expected. But I think that professionalism is lacking in the industry a lot. And if you can bring professionalism to your business and to the industry, it just leads us all in a better direction. And I'm a big believer that I think wood finishing should be an accredited trade. I kind of was picking up that mantle before this whole COVID-19 stuff kind of went bananas, and we sort of shifted focus for a little while, but I'm going to get back on that. There's some interest there to sort of get wood finishing. They would call it maybe furniture finishing elsewhere as an accredited trade, and have some formal training for it. Because right now, the only way to learn it is to work for guys like us, right? And and just learn from other guys. And, you know, some of these older masters that have just amazing knowledge and tricks that you probably would never think of, they're all going, and some of them are gone, and they're passing away, or they're retiring, and a lot of that knowledge is starting to get lost, and we need to sort of keep it alive, because, you know, we don't want to turn this thing into just one of those trades that people just, you know, go, oh God, it's a painter or the finisher, you know. I don't know if it's like that in Boston, but there's some of that here for sure.
There definitely is. And well, because I think what you said, like the barrier to entry to be a painter is incredibly low. I'm example, I'll say I started with a little giant ladder, a paintbrush, and a box, and a Ford Taurus, and that was like 9-10 years ago.
Yeah.
But I think that also means that lots of people can just do that tomorrow. And so when the bar is really low and there's lots of people at that low bar, the standards of the whole industry start to look like go down. You have to really fight hard. Guys like us have to fight really hard to be up here. And in some ways it's good because people have bad experiences and then they come call us. But I'd rather see that not happen and just have good experiences all the time. So I do like the idea. One of my passions and one of the reasons why I'm doing this show is I want to elevate the level of craftsmanship in this country. I want to elevate the perception of painters and what it means to be a painter. I remember being in college and like, or when with my girlfriend and her friends, and like saying you're a painter. I was not instilled in me a lot. Like I had passion at work, but it was hard to be super passionate about being super proud about being a painter. My boss absolutely didn't help me feel proud to be a painter. Yeah. And I think that like there's a lot of skill and craft that goes into what we do. And I'm really proud to be a painter today. And my people are proud, and I hope they're proud. And I'm here to encourage them to be proud to be painters because it's an awesome trade. And I think that we can, just by being knowledgeable and spreading that knowledge and passion and spreading that passion, like it will up the level and will let people know, like, oh wow, like I can feel good about being a finisher or a painter. And that whole thing, I've had people, painters are over here and finishers are over here, and it's like, why does that have to be a big distinction?
Yeah, I think training would be the thing that really, changes that. I can't tell you how many even coating reps out there have no idea what they're doing. We've got a lot of good ones here in Calgary, but on my IG feed, I get, and you probably do too, I don't know how many technical questions a day from people all over the place. And their rep says this or the rep says that. And I'm going, oh my God, this guy's selling coatings and he doesn't even know. Right. So, you know what? I'm just happy that I answer all the questions I can. I'm happy to do it because honestly, some of these guys don't have access to that information anywhere. So it's like IG's their only way they'll go on IG and look up something and they'll find us and they'll ask questions and you see some guys now that are doing podcasts and stuff like that. And I don't really have that kind of time, but I'm happy to do this kind of stuff. I'm happy to answer questions. And, we try to make some of our posts informative. I've had people going, man, you're showing them how you make the sausage. And I'm going, just because you see it doesn't mean you could do it, man. Like, somebody who knows what they're doing might see a missing piece here and go, hey, that's great. Or somebody might actually get a hold of me and go, you know what'll work better if you try this. And I've had that too. I've had some, so I've learned a lot too. I never stop learning. You never want to be arrogant enough to think you've got this thing mastered, because there's so much to learn with all the new products coming up. It's, there's even more now. So, yeah.
I think that just by putting our stuff out there, I agree. Like I answer dozens and dozens of DMs a week with people asking me the same questions, which I'm happy to answer. Sometimes like I'll be in the wrong mood, and now I just try to like wait to answer them till later.
Yeah.
So I'll just send messages, not a hello, not a hi, no constant anything. Just what sprayer, what tip, how much did you thin? And I'm like, man, come on. Like, I can only handle those so many times before it starts to wear on you a bit. But I feel really grateful that I have people who are reaching out, because I remember when I was young and I was studying John Shearer's YouTube videos and picking apart every minute of them. And I was just wishing that there was more content, and there just wasn't that much. And reading every single forum, every single post on the Paint Talk forum till 4 a.m. every night. And now young guys can go on Instagram and be inspired. We can learn. I learn a ton. Like you said, like I've met a bunch of people from all over the country. We learn stuff all the time, changing the ways we do things. You know, I think that what social media has done for painting has been unbelievable.
Yeah.
How did you get into Instagram? I'm curious.
Dylan at Black Forest and Dylan and Brad at Black Forest, they kept at me. And they're like, oh, come on, start Instagram. It's been great for us. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I got a website. People want to look at my pictures. They can look at my pictures. And so they were at me for almost a year. And then I finally I actually got some grant money to hire a student youth grant money. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to use that money, and I'll do it's like a 3-month contract. I'm going to hire a young person to get us up on social. So I hired a young lady for a 3-month contract. She was unbelievable, man. She obviously got us off to a great start and taught us all of the rules and etiquette and all that kind of stuff, and gave us kind of the basis to get going. Because if it was up to me, I'd probably still be spinning my wheels back in the beginning. And so what happens is I started kind of just putting stuff up. You know, at first you're just yelling into an echo chamber anyways. You don't know there's a few people looking at it or whatever. But then what happened is we started to sort of branch out, and we're tagging all of our clients, and then they start tagging us, and then everything. Well, what kind of happened was, especially with Black Forest stuff, I mean, they've got almost 800,000 followers, right? So at the time, I think it was more like 450 when I was getting started, or around 400,000. And so they wanted to give us a boost. So they were kind of, every time we were doing something for them, they were pumping our tires a little bit, which was really great. And it got people coming our way. So what happened is how I thought about Instagram completely evolved into more of what this is now. I think it's as much about promoting your business as it is about education. I think now I used to just think it was just somewhere to share your pictures, and now it's actually, as you can see, I mean, every day it's woven into the grain of our company now.
Huh.
Guys are used to being constantly on film and watching me walk around and talk to myself on the damn, everyone's used to it now. The first time I did a story, I felt like a complete moron. I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. Like, I seriously don't want to put my face on now I'm just used to it, right? So it's been a real evolution, and honestly, it's been the most effective marketing tool we have ever had. I dedicate maybe 5-6 hours a week to IG on average, and other than that, it costs $0, and we have gotten more business directly and indirectly from IG than any other kind of marketing we've done combined in 23 years. So that definitely changed my thinking of it, and that made me want to start upping it a little more and add a little something here, and maybe add some other things to it. There's more I want to do with it. It's just finding the time, right? Like what you're doing right now is really cool, and I was going to do something similar with some of my suppliers. Like I'll invite, say Sia Abrasives to come on, and we'll do a little bullshit session like this, or I'll have somebody from CVAM Coatings or somebody like that come on, and then they can answer technical questions and stuff like that. But just running my business takes so much time that these ideas are kind of still in the can, but I still want to go there.
Yeah, that is so cool. I was dying to hear that story, because you are such a unicorn in this business. You don't see a lot of, or on Instagram, like you just don't see a lot of guys your age, you know, dedicated to Instagram. Like it's beautiful. I talk to people all the time in my local area, and I go to the national conferences for painters, and I'm like, guys, you have to get on Instagram. Let me tell you what it's done for my business and my life. And they just look at you and they're like, ah, whatever. So to have seen you, I mean, from the beginning, I was like, wow, like, what's this guy doing on here? It's cool that you've taken what you do and put it out there to the world, because it's not very common for you get the younger people who don't have all the experience, but when you get the older people, you have all this experience, all this knowledge, this impressive operation running, and you're working on Instagram. It's amazing. You know, I have a lot of respect for that.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's not where I intended to go, to be honest with you. So it's just kind of where it's gone. And yeah, it's been fun. I've actually really enjoyed it, and it makes you want to be better in every way, right? Because I mean, listen, we all behave better when somebody's watching us, don't we? Now I got thousands of people watching every day on stories and whatnot, and I'm like, and if I don't do stories, like maybe I'm sick one day or whatever, I traveled or something, and we don't have stories, man. The messages I get are just like, dude, where's your stories? Like, I want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And yeah, I never thought.
Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, I never thought I would do that. That's just crazy. Now it's just part of my fabric.
I have the same story, even though I'm a little younger. That's the same story I have. My wife started my account. I called them pound signs. I belittled social media to her. I'm so embarrassed of the things I said. I just like, I didn't want anything to do with social media. I didn't have Facebook. I didn't have an Instagram, and I didn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
He started my account, and the evolution is hard. It's like, it's fuzzy. I don't remember exactly how, but like little by little, it started to catch on. And, you know, now like you said, it's a part of my life. Like it's a part of my business. And when we hire new people now, you know, I'm meeting with Sarah, our new intern today, and I'm like, okay, I don't need you, but I'm going to ask you to please set up an Instagram account, and I want you to document your process. And, you know, and then you talk to clients. I'm like the holy grail client, the best client I could have ever thought of. I don't know how to get to them 5 years ago. I don't never know how to get to them. They find me organically through Instagram now.
Yeah.
And they have great, like, respect for what I do. They know what I do. I don't have to sit there and talk and, you know, try to earn trust. The trust is consistency over time on Instagram. You can't, if you post as often as we post, like, you have to be the real deal.
Yeah.
There's no, you know, when you're consistent every day showing projects, you know, it's a great way to build trust.
Yeah, there's no bullshit, because it's just all, we put ourselves out there, right? And yeah, I used to get criticized for it. I don't anymore, but I used to. Why on earth are you putting that out there, man? Like, what are you thinking? Your competition's going to watch it. I'm like, good. Maybe they'll, you know, maybe they'll learn something, and maybe they'll start doing it, and I can learn something from them. Like, I'm not worried about competition. If you go through life worried about your competition, then you're missing the whole point. I think, you know, if you focus on building your own base and building your own business, your own image, your own brand, it just unfolds the way it's supposed to. It just happens the way it's supposed to. Your competition, listen, we need competition. Every business needs competition. If I didn't have competition, if you didn't have competition, we wouldn't try to be any better, would we? Yeah. So, you know, there's some talented people in wood finishing in Calgary. They're my competition. I actually respect them and appreciate them, and I know most of them and talk to them, right? And, you know, I go on their feeds, and I like and make comments on their stuff too, because, you know what? I respect what they're doing, and I don't look at them as the enemy. In fact, more than ever now, this whole coronavirus bullshit, you may look to your right and you look to your left. See who's left. Respect that guy, because he got through it like you did, and maybe you guys can help each other going forward, because, you know, it's going to be a tough go over the next couple of years, like, I mean, nobody really knows the nature of the animal that's going to be left. I mean, we didn't slow down at all. In fact, we got busier, but that doesn't mean 6 months from now there's going to be sudden cliff to fall off. Nobody's can see around this corner yet. So that's my rant on that. Like, I just think community, not competition. I picked that up from somewhere, and I think that's important. You know, I'm not talking about price collusion or anything like that. I'm just talking about, you know, being brotherhood, right? And respecting each other, and actually respecting the trade. So the guys that I respect are the guys that respect the trade. When you walk in their shop, they're running a professional outfit. They know what they're doing. They're good businessmen, and they care about their work. We all know there's just a mountain of other kinds of guys out there that are just doing what they got to do to eat and get by, but they don't really respect the trade. It's just a way to get paid. And, you know, I have more problem with those guys. So, you know, respect your competition, I think, is really, really important.
I think I totally agree with that. That's something that was taught to me. I definitely didn't start off thinking like that. But also, when I was not thinking like that, I also was not focused on getting better every day and only adding value. And I didn't want, maybe, I think when you think like that, you don't want to grow and get uncomfortable. You want to be able to figure out something that works and, like, nobody come encroach on my things. Then I don't have to get better. But I love the idea of, like, business in life. Like, this is not a zero-sum equation. If that guy wins a job there, it does not mean that I won't win a job. There's so much work to go around that I'm much more into, like, figuring out how to better add value to clients, how I can get better, and how I can deliver more for my customer or my client. If I can focus on just that and stay in my lane and focus on me and not look over behind me, that's going to slow me down.
Yep.
I'm going, and I'm going to keep going. And thinking about other people is not going to help, not in a competition way. I actually, this week, I reached out to what you might call my biggest competition around here. A guy I kind of knew about, and I reached out, and we had this amazing conversation. And he was like, I'm really glad you reached out, and we're going to stay in touch now. And it was a friend of mine, Dan Ross, owns a company out in San Francisco. Very successful older contractor, runs a big company. And I remember the first time he told me that he meets with his biggest competitor almost weekly for lunch. And I just was like, how does that work? I didn't understand. But he's so good at what he does, and he's running down his lane. And his limiting factor, in his case, and in my case, and most of our cases, is not work coming in, good clients. It's our workforce. He's like, I'm more competitive about my workforce with this guy than I ever am over jobs. And, he might win a job, and I'll ask him, where was he at? And, but when you're up here, you're battling to get better. When you're all by yourself, it's really hard to get any better when you're in a vacuum. So I think that's an awesome thing that you did, that the way you're thinking about it. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. And you know what? Sometimes they'll be there to help you, and sometimes I'll be there to help them. Like, I've had one of my competitors help me out of a big jam last year, and I really appreciated it. And he's a good guy. And, I just think it's better karma, just all the way around, It's just better karma. And not only that, when there's shady contractors out there, we can pick up the phone and warn each other, hey, if this guy comes to you, I just kicked him out of my place. If he comes to you, run, right?
There's also the idea that, unfortunately, the way the system is set up right now, a lot of clients are going to go get 3 prices. Yeah. I would much rather them go get 3 prices of guys like me that I know that are on the same level as me, that are all really, really close. Then what happens to me quite often is they get 3 prices, and they get 2 guys that don't have it. They're not doing the level of professional work that we do. They're not awesome, but their pieces of paper look fairly similar to mine.
Yeah. And
their numbers are way off.
Yeah.
That doesn't help me. I would much rather have everyone, the whole market, be elevated so that when you get three prices, at least you get three prices that are real close.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's the same problem here. And again, that's when you're bidding on a cabinetry job, and you know if they're pricing it out, the guys that are using pre-cat and charging a lot less, but nobody asks or says anything on their quote. So I always make sure now I put a note if I'm quoting a job for a new client that I know is shopping around. I always make sure you're comparing apples to apples. This is what we use. And if your other quotes are not using the same thing, then ask, right? What are you using? Because the cost of the product plays into it. It also shows level of workmanship, right? I mean, a cheap-ass painter is not going to put polyurethane on cabinetry. You know what I mean? He's just not going to do it. And even if he did, it's going to be real tough for him to make any money at all because without a splash and dash, right? So, yeah, I find that it's the same. I think it's the same in every trade. You got to make sure that people understand what they're asking or what you're giving them, and so they can compare it to everybody else. Yeah, it can be really frustrating. And I always used to be, I was almost a little arrogant about it. Oh, we're all pre-cat. We don't do, or we're all post-cat. We don't do pre-cat. You know, we don't, that's a cheap finish. And like I said, I've changed my thinking about that because there are many cases where pre-cat is actually very suitable and very, very good for the kind of work. And it gives you economically a chance to, get into the project. So.
That's awesome. All right. Been a while. Now we get into our standard ZK Live questions. Let's start with what's your favorite piece of paint paraphernalia? It can be a type of paint. It can be a tool. Anything that has to do with painting. What do you have a favorite?
Oh, paraphernalia. Well, you know what? My 5-way tool that I've probably had for about 35 years, that I've got the scars in my side that will be there until I die, that nobody will ever know what they're from carrying my 5-way tool in my back pocket and sitting down in chairs. I still have the same one I've had in my toolbox for over 30 years. So if anyone touches my 5-way, you're dead.
That's Can you do me a favor and post a picture of that in the next couple of days?
Yeah.
I would love to see it. I think other people would love to see it. I've said this before. I could never hold on to 5-in-1s. I've probably gone through 50 5-in-1s in my career. I wish I had my first 5-in-1. My kids will never get handed down a 5-in-1 from dad because, they would disappear on me. That's awesome. I think I love a 5-in-1 tool. I actually just posted a video on TikTok yesterday of Phil ringing out a roller with a 5-in-1.
Yeah.
That has gone viral now and it's nuts. And people are going, I didn't know that's what that was for.
Really?
Oh yeah. You wouldn't believe how many people have said that.
That's fun.
It's crazy. You should get on TikTok, by the way.
Yeah, I've heard. I haven't played around with that. Yeah, it's a different demographic.
You can make gold videos, and it's so. I posted a video a day and a half ago, and it has 1.3 million views. It's absolutely blowing up, and I understand what you're saying. Like I said the same thing about Instagram. Like the demograpic's not there. I'll see the people following me on TikTok, and there are a lot of older women, like adult women mostly. I have a much higher women to male ratio on TikTok than I do on Instagram. So I think it's worthwhile, and it's really easy to just take clips of like laying down some like bright red on a white primer and bang, you never know what's going to hit.
Yeah, I'll check it out for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Do you have a DIY paint tip for people?
Well, I don't know if I'll throw out a paint tip, but I would put out a finishing tip.
Yeah.
Well, there's I'd say the thing that I get asked most about, how do you finish MDF and get the edges smooth? Right? So I'm going to tackle that one because that and caulking are the two most common questions I get asked. Maybe I'll tackle them both. So MDF, because there's different grades of MDF and there are different grades of carpenters out there, and we get them all. So we try and treat everything the same way. So for instance, you got let's just talk about a gable end, you know, where you've got the raw edge of the MDF, right? And people just have all kinds of problems getting that stuff to look nice and smooth. So the key is sand, sand, sand first. You know, we bring it up to 220, then we prime it. Sometimes we'll knock it down in between, like when we flip it over from one side to the other, we'll give it a little knockdown, prime it again. It gets about at least 4 or 5 passes. Very low. When you're laying the heavy primer on, and I'm telling you, after that, don't sand the primer off. I can't tell you how many guys I've seen, rookies, everyone. Then they'll take an orbital to it and they'll grind the sander off, and then they'll spray it with finish coat and wonder why it's see-through. What you want to do is build it up on top and get it to sit up there nice. And then when you sand it, you're just knocking down the nibs. You're just denibbing it. You've already done the hard work. I think what happens is a lot of people just undo all the work they put in by improper sanding.
That's a great. What's your favorite MDF primer?
Favorite MDF primer right now is what we're using from KCI. Now, because we've only just started using it, I can't remember it, but it's a post cap primer. We were using Claw Lock 2 from ML Campbell for a long, long time. And we're using this stuff from KCI now, which is also a post cat conversion varnish primer. And this stuff just dries nice and quick, fills beautifully, and sits up really nice. So, you know, when you knock, gives you a lot of room to knock it down, and it powders up beautifully. It doesn't create any static. So right now, that's our favorite.
Awesome. How about caulking then? While we're there and we have some time, why don't you tell us about caulking?
Every time you do a post about caulking, there's like 150 comments. People just lose their mind over that. Caulking shaker doors.
It's the Red Sox of painting.
Yes. And what a lot of people don't realize and forget when they're watching our feed, they see us caulking a door, they lose their mind and go, why don't you get doors that have a bevel on the back so you don't have to caulk them? And I'm like, because I'm just the finisher. I finish what I'm given. And so we have to take 2 approaches when it comes to caulking. There's actually 3 approaches. There are some people that prefer their doors to be caulked no matter how they're made. They want it clean, they don't want any lines, and they realize the perils, the potential perils of that if it's a 5-piece door that can move. The other approach is if there is a clean reveal around the stile and rail and the edge, we don't caulk it, because then that panel can shift and move in there and it'll never crack as long as it's a nice, even, clean reveal. However, when you get these MDF 2-piece doors that are really tight and there's no chamfer on the back, you got to caulk it. You have to. If you don't, it looks like ass. And I get a lot of messages from people just saying, I don't caulk ever. You should never, ever, ever, ever caulk. And I'm like, well, you can do it and still not have it crack, believe it or not. Just don't put a bead on there so thick you got to pull off your sock and scrape it with your big toe. You know, like, we cut the bead to the very finest and just enough so that the primer will bridge. And we don't have problems, but I prefer not to, believe me, because that's labor I'd rather put into something else.
Totally. I wonder if it also has to do with the climate that you're in. Is it a fairly stable climate?
Hell no. It's about as stable as you can get. So
it
is, yeah, because we've got vast swings in temperature and vast swings in humidity. For the most part, in the winter here, the humidity drops as low as Phoenix. It's just like skin cracking, low humidity. So if anything is going to crack here, it cracks in the winter. And then spring comes and everything starts to expand a little bit, and all of a sudden then that's when you'll see panels shifting. That's why exterior doors here, like wooden exterior doors, are such a nightmare.
Yeah,
So,
we don't exteriors.
yeah, so we used to do all the Black Forest exterior doors, and he's decided to stick his neck way out and actually just he's putting an oil finish on them all. So I'll be interested to see how that holds up over the next few years.
How's a maintenance plan with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's got to be what it is. And you know what? If it's done right, I'm sure those things will last forever.
If you maintain oil, penetrating oil, it's an awesome finish. It just the second you let it go 2 days too late, you're refinishing the whole door.
Well, we know people are by their very nature what? Lazy. And so eventually it'll start to slip. And so hopefully they
God, package. If I coat one door with penetrating oil, or even a clear oil or a clear varnish of any sort, I'm not walking away without them refusing a maintenance package, because my job as a finisher is to come back every year and put a coat on it.
Yeah.
You clients got a million things to do. If I wait for them to call me, they're never calling me.
Yeah.
So we put them on the schedule and we contact them. And it's a win-win. We're not refinishing doors. We get built-in recurring revenue, and the client doesn't have to think about anything.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah, I like that. And yeah, so I think it's going to do fairly well for them because it's a different, I mean, it's bonding with the wood, and the wood will still be able to move, you know, and if you maintain it every year, then that will hopefully keep moisture from getting in there and causing problems. So I'm happy to let Black Forest do that because I got my hands full doing other things. But yeah, up until now, it's been the old spraying polyurethanes on the exterior doors, and in a lot of cases they do just fine. But you know, when they're heavily exposed, south exposure, you know, open to the elements, it's just brutal.
How many employees do you have?
I've got 9.
Are those all cleaners or
No.
office?
So there's myself, 2 other people in the front office. So I've got Richard and Teresa. So Teresa does she answers the phones, does the books. Richard manages the production schedule and does the estimates. I just sit there and look good. No. And
estimating software, right?
no, we see, the thing is, you know, we get drawings from all manners of different clients. So we like to estimate off of drawings, but sometimes we just get cut lists, and sometimes we just get, you know, like a list of items they want finished with dimensions. So there's a whole different mixed bag of ways that we have to actually estimate. Because we use a square footage formula, what we do is we break everything down, enter it into the software that's one of the things that Richard has done is he's built our software that manages our production, manages our estimates, manages our costs, all of that kind of stuff, and it all analyzes it all together. And he enters all of that in, and then we actually know what our square foot cost price is for every kind of finish we've ever done. And whenever we do a new finish that we've never done before, we build that into the system so that if we ever do it again, you just enter the square footage in there and boom, there's your price.
That's amazing. All right. Our final question, my favorite, is what is your most embarrassing moment in business?
Most embarrassing moment in business. Well,
project that went horribly wrong. What do you got for us?
You know, I did have a project go horribly wrong, and we actually lost one of our main clients over it. And this was not that long ago. It was about 8 years ago, and this isn't a funny story. It's embarrassing in the fact that it happens to anyone in business. But there's a lot of good that came out of it. So anyways, yeah, so we were in the middle of our supplier decided to drop his distribution of a certain product line that we were used to using, and brought in a new product line. And we just kind of jumped on board as guinea pigs. We didn't really inform the client that there was anything different going on. And we found out through process that the product did not work very well. It was also a post-cat conversion varnish, but you'll know that conversion varnishes that have, like, say, a 10% ratio, a 10-to-1 ratio, they're pretty easy to, you can make a little bit of a mistake either way. The catalyst isn't so strong that it will kill you one way or the other.
Yeah.
This stuff had a 2.25% ratio. And so the catalyst was extremely strong, and you had to mix everything very precisely. But as a result, too, it was also extremely sensitive to mill build. So we went from resistant to this product. Then resistant, you can build really nice, and it was a 10% catalyst. This stuff, because the catalyst was so strong, if you built anywhere past the recommended mill coverage, it was going to crack all over the place. We had 5 kitchens completely fail. They cracked all over the place. And that was an absolute nightmare. So for this one particular client, I think I'd probably somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000 later before I could finally at least say I did everything I could. That actually, I was going to say, ended our relationship for quite a while, but they're actually back with us now, and we're working together nicely, and we're all happy that we're back together as one big happy family. Well, one of the things that I learned from that is because they were selling the idea of tinted primer and a clear finish top coat. And I get asked this all the time, and I got to say this before we go.
Oh, yeah.
It's a freaking horrible idea, and I'm going to tell you why. Unless you have a flat line that has exactly the same mill coverage on every single piece that you spray, you're going to end up with a checkerboard kitchen. And it's not the tinted primer that's the problem. It's the clear. Unless you have exact same coat weight of the clear over top of every single piece, which is physically impossible if you actually are spraying by hand, they're not going to match up because there's just a slight color difference every time you have a variance of even half a mil to a mil. And so I actually had to go into, like I mentioned, 5 kitchens. There was the one with the cracking, and then there was these other 4 that had color variances all over the place. I actually had to refinish every one of those kitchens on my own dime, and it was an absolute nightmare. I put a claim in, but it didn't cover anywhere near the damage that was done. Yeah. So yeah, that was embarrassing, and it sucked a lot, and it was a hard lesson to learn. And I'm happy to share that with anyone who thinks that tinted primer and clear is a good color, because that's being touted as the way to do it. If you're doing a glaze, that's a little bit different, right? Because you've already got some live variance in there. But you got a white or an off-white, darker colors, it won't matter. But a white or an off-white, boom, good luck with that.
And I think that's also just a good lesson. Like, don't experiment on clients' projects.
Yeah, that's why they left us. They were really upset that we never told them about it. And absolutely, yeah. That was
time. How do I, like someone asked last time, how do we up our game in finishing? Or if you're going to use a product for the first time, don't do it on a client's project. Getting into FPE a few years ago changed my whole perspective on this, because as painters, house painters, you don't go back to a shop and like test stuff on random stuff and then go, you paint and you keep moving. But when I started using fine paints, my consultant was like, you need to go to the shop, you need to take the paint, and you need to break it. You need to figure out how much is too much thinner. What does it look like when it has too much thinner? Like, figure out what's this coating all about. Break it so that you know where your parameters are.
Yeah.
And I've learned the hard way many times, like you. Don't experiment on a project. We have that Vera metal project coming up. We made a big mock-up of sort of the wall, a narrow one, but the whole height. And we practiced keeping our wet edge 4 and 8 foot long section before we ever went on site, because I don't want to show up and have to figure that out. It's going to be tough enough as is.
Yeah.
Go to the shop, take that extra time that you might feel like is a waste of money. It's actually the best investment you'll ever make. It'll save your ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go
That's good advice. I recently did that where we're using a new conversion varnish high gloss. It's the highest gloss I've ever seen come out of off the gun. And the solids on this stuff is 87%. Try to imagine that. So high gloss conversion varnish is already a really, really hot finish as it is. And then you add that kind of solid content to it, you know, you've got to slow it down so much to actually lay this stuff out in glass. So I had to do a lot of playing around back and forth and different thinning mixtures and different kinds of thinners, and until I found the right mix before we jumped onto the job. I probably blew 2 gallons of this stuff. But I'll tell you what, when we actually did the job, it turned out absolutely amazing. And now we're getting more of this stuff coming in, and we can feel confident going forward now. We know how to price it. We know how to finish it. But yeah, I can't tell you how many times I learned the hard way, learning on the job and just diving into a project when I was young and just do it. Because I most of the shit I learned the hard way. Honestly, I made so many mistakes. And that's probably where I learned so much, because I made so many dumb mistakes. And, you know, I mean, if there's anything you can pass on to the young guys, it's like what not to do. I've got an encyclopedia of what not to do.
Me too. And that's been my experience. I was always trying all sorts of things and, you know, trying to learn, but that also meant that I've made so many mistakes, you know. But I think being an entrepreneur and owning a business, like, you have to get comfortable making mistakes. You just try to take the risk, you know.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, no, it's been great. I've enjoyed this talk, and
yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for inviting me. And you know, this is my first live. Actually, I was thinking about doing live a while ago, and I just never did it because. But I'll probably do something, you know, again in the future, and I'll invite you in. I think I'm going to be talking about this Vero though, because I'm going to be playing with it over the next week or so. So I'd love to pick your brains on what you've learned so far on that. See if we can't put something together.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right. Take it easy. Yeah. Bye. Wow, that guy's got a ton of knowledge. Thanks again, everybody, for watching throughout that 2-hour interview. I think this 1 hour, man, it's tough. You get these people with all this knowledge, and 1 hour is just not enough time to get all that out. We might do more 2 hours. I'll probably put a poll up to see, and maybe we'll vote and see if people want to extend it to 2 hours. I have some awesome guests coming up. I am absolutely blanking on who's on Friday, but I will be posting that a little bit later, who's on Friday. Jack Andrews is going to be on Sunday night. We also have Zach from Detmore 101 coming on. He's pretty entertaining, and we're going to get the perspective of a GC and how they look at painters. But again, guys, thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, please share it on your page. I'd love it to spread so more people can see this. We're going to be posting this on IG Live, and very soon they'll be up on YouTube and in podcast form. Thanks, guys.